Howdy Neighbors, and welcome back to our life! Last time we came home. This time we keep it going. This is step 4, by the way. I was told there was only 3. Apparently there's 4. Once outside, on the neighborhood street, you looked at Cove. He stood at your side with a bent smile. Terry and Randy were driving into town, while you and Cove were traveling on foot to meet them at an easier to reach spot. Man, we really are kids in Sunset Bird again, having to rely on other people to actually have cars to really get anywhere. Now we're stuck walking to whatever is nearby. No, we're reverting back to infancy. A snort was followed by true laughter from Cove. Teasingly, you pouted. It's not funny, Cove. I don't want to be a baby again. I didn't realize we were regressing that seriously. He shrugged, then stuck his hands in his pocket. He thought of being a little again makes you shiver. I want to go back to that. I like being me currently.
Me too.
I like current you too. Let's go. You bounced forward several steps and shot Cove a playful look over your shoulder. With that, the two of you began to trip down the old road. It was a casual stroll into town. But before you knew it, you were at one of the large parking lots of Sunset Bird. It was the one that used to have the little crepe stall. Remembering the delicious smell, you were lost in thought. The store did well enough to be moved to a full-size building a couple of years ago now. You've seen pictures. It was very cute. The parking lot was now just, well, an empty parking lot that cars were theoretically parked in. Not many took the offer. Cove pulled out his phone, texting Terry and Randy in the group chat to let them know we made it. Someone must have answered already because Cove gave you a status update while still staring at the screen. Randy texted, "I can see you." Oh, the blare of a car horn cut you off. You and Cove both turned toward the source of the noise. One of the windows rolled down.
Buddies.
Hey, buddies! Your friends had arrived, made a spectacle of it, as expected. Being the only car meant that they got a pick of the lot, so they pulled to a stop right in front of you. The window closed back up, and instead 2 front doors popped open. Terry and Miranda stepped down to the pavement. Hi, Cove. Hi, Viola. With a cheery wave, Miranda skipped toward you. Terry, on the other hand, walked speedily over to Cove, squeezing him into a hug. A quiet laugh escaped Cove, along with the majority of air in his lungs. He didn't fight the constriction, but instead gave Terry's back a pat with a large grin spreading across his face. He looks good. And when he let Cove go, Terry came right up to you. He held his fist up for you to bump it. Bumped his fist with a high five to make it turn. Bumped his fist. You pressed forward, meeting Terry's knuckles with a light bop. He greeted you with a satisfied grin. It felt nice to have your friend group reunited as adults. Terry was currently a full-time lifeguard down at the busier beach the town over. You're proud of him. It helped a lot of people in his line of work. Miranda took Cove's hand in one squeeze and yours in another. Her eyes alight, she gave you both a gentle squeeze. Oh my god, I read it wrong. Whatever.
So great.
So happy to see you again. Hey Terry, hi Miranda. He answered assuredly. It was clear that he was equally glad to see them. The reunion was long awaited. I will learn how to read. That is going to be my goal for the end of this year. I will learn how to read. For a while, Miranda had been working hard as an assistant at a school while continuing her own education. She was also busy running a small online shop selling crafted knickknacks she made. It's good to see you too. We're thrilled to have an impromptu afternoon together. It had been way too long since the 4 of you last got together like this. Miranda released her hands. Giggling, she eyed you both carefully. So how have you been?
It's nice.
These have been nice. You've been doing well.
That's cool.
I'm really glad. Miranda put her hands behind her back sweetly, leaning forward just a smidge. Of course, everybody already knew you'd be a success. What about you? I'm super. Terry sidled up next to Miranda and put his arm around her shoulder. Sighing dreamily, Randy chuckled up at her boyfriend. Yeah, things have been unbelievable. He pressed his cheek against Miranda's, and she let out a light squeak. The sight put an amused grin on your face. Your friends made a wonderful couple. They knew each other well and cared about each other so much. There was no shock at all when you heard the news that they started dating. One of your mouth curled playfully while you took in the warm welcomes all around. At times it was kind of funny how your group of 4 friends evolved into 2 couples. Not that you were complaining about it. You thought it was an amazing thing. Cove then pulled his phone out and peeked at the screen. He repeated the motion every so often. You raised a curious eyebrow at his unusual behavior. Cove was too focused on whatever he was doing to even notice you noticing him, which is even stranger. So, is there anything either of you want to do or hear? Any place you want to see? I'd be up for a lot of things, but actually, there's something I want to do right here. Oh yeah? What's that? Terry poked at Cove's arm playfully. Miranda met your eyes, silently asking if you had any idea what Cove was talking about. He shrugged. I just want to see my friends. Huh. Cove, you're already doing that.
Wow.
True, but I could be doing it even more. You, Terry, and Miranda all turned to Cove with identical, incredulous expressions. His stare moved to a point past you 3. You heard the scrape of sand and gravel underfoot. Someone stepped into the parking lot. Startled, you jumped at the call of a warm voice shouting over.
What's up, guys and gals?
Oh my fucking god. Oh no. Oh no. Hi, Derek. Running a hand through his hair, the person who crossed the law was unmistakably Derek Suarez. He was beaming the whole way. Well, it's been a while, huh? He waved. Suddenly you found yourself waving without a word. Part of you couldn't believe what you were seeing, but Derek waved back shyly.
I missed you.
Missed you. His voice was sincere, and made your chest tighten bittersweetly. You couldn't help but wonder how things might have been if you had lived closer together. Whoa, you're ripped, whoever you are. Beaming, Derek scuffled a few pebbles under his foot. You shook your head, amused. He was still the same boy you remembered. Hell yeah, thank you for noticing. Hi, I'm Miranda Eckert, and this is my boyfriend, Terry Brooke. Hey there. It's good to meet you both. I'm Derek Suarez. Damn, yeah you are. He held his arm out for a handshake, and Terry grabbed him first. He floppily took Derek's hand in a jockey way, making him grin. Miranda went after, and instead politely shook his hand. Derek's expression softened immediately. You had a good feeling that everyone would get along really well. Cove put himself next to Derek. Happily, he clapped his hand on his friend's shoulder. Hey, thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Of course, thanks for inviting me. Feverishly, Cove looked back at you and the others. That's when it clicked in your mind. It wasn't his parents he was texting earlier. It was Derek the entire time. Derek is in town for a few months to help my dad and his dad with some work. Yep, I'm working on my own business thing too. But I'm still involved with running the scuba shop when it's called for.
Very nifty.
Nifty. Humming, Derek elbowed Cove.
So?
But hey, we don't have to stand around here for my sake. What's the plan? Let's hit the town. You gotta get going. Everyone piled in Terry's car. The rest of the afternoon was spent visiting spots all over Sunset Bird, laughing and reminiscing the whole way. Once it started to get late, Terry brought you and Cove back to the neighborhood. You didn't have to walk there after all. You didn't get out until promises were made to see each other again before your trip ended. Side by side, you and Cove stood in the street and waved to the cars that drove away. Terry tapped the horn for 2 honks while Miranda stuck her hand out of the window to wave back. caught Derek in the back window, giving you both a wide grin. Sighing, as soon as the car turned to another street, they were finally out of sight. Well, that was one party. Time for another, that is to your mom's. You glance from Cove over to your childhood home quietly. Yeah. Spirits high, you and Cove cross the distance to your house. It was almost time for the anniversary dinner. Barely stepped over the threshold to the condo before Ma descended, eagerly welcoming you both. The usual greetings were followed by questions on everyone's well-being, after which the conversation moved on the excited chatter about tonight's dinner plans. Cove excused himself to the restroom to freshen up before being on the move again. Get more buttons, please. When he returned, you were shocked to see that he had entirely changed outfits. Where did that come from? I packed you with me so I can get dressed before the dinner without having to go back to the hotel. Didn't you? Or maybe your stuff's still here at your mom's place. No, it's not a formal meal. It's your mom's party. It's at a country club. Yeah, that's normal. Where we always do. It'd be different if we were going to one of the club's parties, but we're only going for a regular meal. Cove was as befuddled by your explanation as you were by his actions. He threw up his arms, desperate for an understanding.
Seriously?
How can you not dress nicely for a country club? I don't think the Cypress is as special as you've decided it was. You saw Ma. She wasn't in formal clothes. She's one of the guests of honor. His frown wobbled. His cheeks became far pinker. He looked down at his own self-regrettably as he pulled at the cuffs of his shirt. He seemed more like a scolded child than a grown man dressed for the latest charity gala. I thought she was gonna get changed while you and me were... That's okay. You look very nice. That earned you a sheepish smile, though he clearly wished his look wasn't garnered any special attention. Cove's eyes stole a glance to the hall, as if he was calculating if he'd had time for another quick change. Unfortunately for him, it was not meant to be. Time to head out had come far quicker than you'd expected. Mr. Holden and Kyra swung by the condo to make sure everything was in order. And for your second surprise of the night, Mr. Holden was also in formal clothes. Cove's face whipped toward yours at the same time Mr. Holden went to Kyra's. The two men pointed at one another. Same hat. See, he knows. Exactly, sport. Kyra was telling me like I was crazy. The aforementioned Kyra placed a hand delicately yet dramatically across her eyes. Clifford, only your son knows this because you're the one who raised him. Mr. Holden chuckled. His arm moved to scratch the back of his head. Well, that's my boy. The ends of Cove's mouth gently bent up. He truly was his father's kid, in more ways than even he realized. They may be the only ones in the group, potentially the other guests at the entire club, all gussied up. But at least they could now take solace in one another. It looked to be good enough for them. All members of the family headed out at the same time to Cyprus. It was to be a perfect reunion. The impeccably smart host greeted you on arrival, smoothly leading the way to set the tables reserved for your group. Once you all settled in, some drinks were poured into delicate glasses. Food would be coming out later, letting you soak up the atmosphere a little longer. Smiling, your parents faced the group of familiar faces, all gathered here together to share the special day with them. Mom reached over and took Ma's hand, clasping it between both of hers. Thanks for being here tonight, gang. Marrying this lady right here is the best thing I've ever done. And there is no one else I'd want to celebrate that with. Yes, we're so lucky. Not only do we have each other, but we've got such a large and loving family through all of you. Around you heard people saying aw and chuckling appreciatively at the comment. Lee had clasped her hands tightly in front of her, her eyes shining. Your eyes met Liz's misty ones, and the affection she had for her mom's carried over to you too. You returned your attention toward the happy couple just as they leaned in to kiss, smiling all the while. The table responded in cheers and clapping, shouting happy anniversary, and other congratulations continuing even after they'd broken apart. Mom beamed as she watched Ma giggle dreamily. Then their eyes met yours across the table. And of course, it's not too much longer before we're celebrating another marriage, huh? She leaned eagerly over the table toward you and Cove. Your fiancé blushed, but he was still grinning proudly at the suggestion. Yeah, when is that happening? With how long you two known each other, it's a miracle you had the willpower to hold off on officially tying the knot already. Liz smirked. You'd known that face since childhood. You're in trouble. Yeah, wait much longer and I'll start taking bets for real on when it'll happen. I missed my chance with the proposal. The group burst into laughter. Cove, who'd only stopped pouting long enough to take an angry chug of his drink, did not join in. Barris, you sunk down in a chair. All this teasing was good nature. Being the center of attention like this made you wish you were still young enough to take cover under the table. The waiters reappeared, delivering delicious plates of food, and the dinner began in earnest. Both conversation and laughter continued to flow freely as the night went on, with both families relishing the opportunity to be together once more. Eventually, after your hunger and thirst had been truly satisfied, the plates were cleared and the event began to run to a close. Cliff and Kyra exchanged goodbyes with your family before heading out together. Cove gave his goodbyes to his parents while hanging back until your moms were ready to head off. You were getting a lift back with your moms. It was already late, so you discussed the possibility of going straight to the hotel rather than going back to the condo. But Cove had asked if they'd mind taking him back to the neighborhood. He wanted to visit it a little longer. Your moms had happily agreed. Liz and Lee were feeling tired, so your moms swung by their hotels during the trip home, while you and Cove made the full journey with them. Right in the backseat of your mom's car, with Cove felt more than a little nostalgic. As your eyes drifted over to him, his head resting on the window, you started to believe how much time had passed. Ma stretched as soon as she got out of the car, smiling over her shoulder as she headed toward the house. Time to put my feet up. You two joining us? Cove shook his head. No thanks. It's your anniversary. You don't have to entertain me. I'll take a walk. It's never any trouble to have you over, Cove. You do as you please, Lonnie. But you... Oh, God. We better not sit out much later or there'll be trouble. Ma chuckled as Mom waggled her finger, an expression exaggeratedly severe as she reprised the role that, in truth, she had never really played. Neither your parents had been particularly harsh as you grew up. Ma joined the act. Don't go too wild just because there's no school tomorrow. Laughing, they made their way inside, leaving you standing out on the dark street next to Cove. You didn't even need to ask him why. You already had the answer to this. He wasn't yet ready for the day to end. Without a word, Cove began to stroll down the road. You walked alongside him. You knew your destination long before you arrived on the dark and utterly deserted beach. There were no lights down here. Nothing but the moon and the stars for illumination. Are the clouds moving? I don't think so. I think I'm going nuts. The only sounds were the gentle waves rolling in and out, and the soft sound of the footsteps you left in the sand. With the words, it was perfect. Cove stepped out into the waves without a word. He looked up at the sky with a smile, and then tugged his head down and began to pull his fancy shirt off. Tugged it over his head and lobbed it backward, up the beach and out of reach of the waves. Do you know beginning a show? Cove froze, his arms still raised from when he had thrown the shirt. Slowly, he came back to life, simply pulling his arm back down. Commentary had made him self-conscious. Laughing, he clapped your hands in delight at his awkwardness. Cove slipped his dress pants off and tossed them behind him in roughly the same direction as his shirt. He was down in just his polka dot boxer briefs. Good to know. Sometimes you were still struck by the way in which he was braver than his younger self. It was definitely one of those times. He had never ever would have done this when you were both living in the street. But you also know he still wouldn't do it with anyone other than someone he spent all those years with. That was wild. Cove waded further into the water, came up to his chest. He marveled at Cove as Cove turned around in the water, his exposed shoulders glistening under the moonlight from where the waves had splashed around him. Cove grinned and waved at you from the sea. I'm gonna get in so much trouble with my moms when we get back. Cove shrugged. He's enjoying this too much to care right now.
I guess.
Yeah? Oh well. Think fast. He slashed water at you as soon as the words left his lips, giving you no time to prepare. You managed to turn just enough that your back took the brunt of the onslaught, but you were still wet now. Kicked water back at him from the shore. Cove laughed, not realizing that you were up to until the water came shooting in his direction. He managed to get some in his mouth, which you took as a victory. He sighed and looked at you mournfully. A sudden shift in mood alarmed you. But those words disappeared as soon as he opened his mouth. Still not a merman. This world is cruel. You snickered. After a moment, Cove's mock sadness broke and he joined in. The two of you wound up drifting further along the shoreline, chatting and enjoying the chance to be back at the beach proved to be the backdrop for so much of your childhood. Eventually, a silhouette of structures appeared up ahead. As you got closer, you realized it was the old playground. He was spotted it too, and hurried toward it, dragging himself out of the water and heading to the park. The sand coated his feet and lower legs with every step, clinging thickly enough to become what resembled a bizarre pair of boots. As you followed him, you wondered how many visitors this little park got these days. There are officially no children living in the neighborhood now. Cove gazed at his surroundings in wide-eyed awe. He didn't care at all that he was soaking wet and dressed only in his underwear. Crouching, he gently pushed one of the child-sized swing sets, marveling at it all.
Wow.
I can't believe how tiny everything is. We're seriously small enough to use these. He shook his head, unable to fathom just how old you'd both been when you first met, then walking over to the monkey bars. At once these were challenging for you. Now they were little more than waist height next to Cove. Cove turned his back to the bars and hopped onto them with ease, sitting on them comfortably. Leaning against the bars. It felt strange seeing adult Cove juxtaposed with the baby playground. This place had been something exciting to Cove back when he first arrived, and apparently it was the same. Cove smiled eagerly as you approached, kicking his feet in the air happily, briefly forgetting the low vantage point until the tip of his toes scraped along the ground. He continued to swing his feet with a little more care. He thought it was adorable. In this moment, you were at home. It just so happened to be the place you'd grown up. But really, anywhere you were with Cove was that for you. He had held a special place in your heart for so long, and so much of your life had been shared. You'd grown up on the same street, which had given you some common ground, but it went far beyond that. You had both chosen from a young age to share your life with each other. You wouldn't have it any other way. Here we are again. You nodded. The mood has shifted now. It's the funny, impulsive night beach trip, with the spike of adrenaline that came from you playing in the water under the moonlight, has settled into something quieter and more nostalgic. Cove leaned back, laying his head toward the sky to admire the stars from above. It was really nice. It was great to do all of this. The smile he had when he spoke those words fell as quickly as it had appeared. Went by so fast. We all came out here for the party and it's over. Leslie, her parents. We'll all be going back to our own things now. But what else can you do except say it's okay? He shook his head, a wry look twinkling in his eyes. If I really and never wanted to see things outside of this neighborhood, I would have actually followed through with that pretzel plan. This place, and these people, they're our foundation. It shaped who we are now, making castle out of sand. We owe a lot to Sunset Bird. His eyes crinkled fondly, and Cove's voice was gentle when he spoke again. We had a good childhood, I think. I think so too.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice place to grow up. He shook his head, sighing heavily. Alright. His smile took an uncharacteristically harsh twist. You had a feeling there was where this was going. Better get back home before your dumb parents who don't know anything get mad. You had to laugh at the half-hearted impression of the sour kid you'd once encountered at the very park. He chuckled along with you for a moment before tapering off. I hope we don't get grounded. Your jokes kept coming. It was very amusing to imagine that not only would your mom somehow ground you, the fully grown independent adult, their powers extended over Cove as well. As much as you had enjoyed being back here, Cove was right. You had to accept that you needed to go now. It was late, and your moms were still expecting to see you before you got a ride back to the hotel. Cove hopped down from the bars, landing easily on the ground, only a short distance below. Before you could return, you had some clothes to retrieve from the beach. You retrode the same path, following the footprints down the shore you had left in the sand only a little while earlier. Once Cove had scrounged up his abandoned clothes, you'd walked up the old path home side by side. Once the water slipped down from Cove and fell onto the road as you made your way back to your mom's house. As he was still soaked and sandy from the early adventure, it was likely that Cove was leaving quite a trail in his wake. But you'd seen Cove's bedroom growing up. It's only natural for him. It was slightly humid, already pleasantly dense with moisture that felt like a hug as it closed around you. Humid air is disgusting. Any damp footprints that were left would only take longer to dry in this weather. Signs of your adventure must have been visible when the sun came up the next day. You'd hope so. Quite like the idea of you and Cove leaving your mark on the hometown again, even for only a little while. Despite being out so late, and in Cove's case, mostly undressed, the balmy summer night prevented you from feeling any chill. You were entirely comfortable. It was true, you felt warm inside and out. The day had been so lovely, spending time with your friends and family, and your eyes drifted over the Cove. Cove Holden, your fiancé. Just seeing him brought a smile to your face. Said nothing, simply enjoying his presence. Excuse me. Click. Thank you. Cove nodded too, as if in agreement with you despite no words being spoken. You understood each other perfectly without them. You were full of joy. All other concerns and the day-to-day stresses of normal life were squeezed out by now. All you could think in that moment was how your life was wonderful. Every second, every day needed to end sometime. And that time had nearly come for tonight. You had to get at least some rest and bring it all to a close. So the two of you went inside to say goodnight to your moms, as well as clean yourselves up as best you could. Your moms, both in pajamas and ready for their own sleep, hooted with laughter when you came inside, disheveled and damp, and their teasing continued till the car came to get you to the hotel. Cove stayed silent as he put his casual clothes on again, leaving the formal ones back in the bag he brought him in. You had given Mom and Ma plenty of material to mock for a mock scolding, and you got a playful lecture about not staying out too late in the future. You just grinned at your partner in crime, feeling like a naughty kid again. It had been worth it. By the time you and Cove finally dragged yourselves to your hotel room for the night, the sky had been dark for some time and the lonely hotel halls were quiet. The late hour made you feel a sense of fulfillment. You really were making the most of your trip. It was such an odd thought that it was almost over. I had settled into this new routine naturally. All the familiar streets and faces made everything else easy to get used to. The two of you dressily shuffled past the ice machine and into your room. Cove set his phone on the bedside table and you followed suit. You both started settling in for the night. The hotel room was a welcome sight after your long day. Notice Cove rubbed the back of his neck and yawned. His voice was quiet and distant. The pet sitter is doing good. The wish wasn't exactly directed to you. It was a sleepy thought that Cove had unleashed upon the world at large, but you still agreed. Not decisively. Cove still kept fish after all those years. Delightful, colorful things in huge aquariums. He spent a lot of time when he wanted to relax just watching them swim. But also adopted a pet who you loved dearly. Your home was a lovely place full of critters that both of you cared for. That's why, with both of you gone, it was important to find a decent pet sitter. Cove's anxiety about leaving them hasn't subsided. Over the vacation, you had caught him a few times texting the pet sitter and asking about his fish. It'll be okay. Cove turned his head to you, the nervousness still coming off despite his exhaustion. The calmness smiled at Cove, letting him see your belief that everything was fine. He relaxed and nodded back to you. Cove yawned widely. He seemed confused at the magnitude of it. He hardly blinked at you. I think it's time for bed. Also, I just realized Cove has glasses. Is it weird that I didn't even, think about it before? You hummed in agreement and started to dig out your pajamas. Two of you got changed to brush your teeth in no time at all. Both of you were cozy and ready for sleep. After that, you and Cove headed for opposite sides of the room and to climb into your respective beds. You tugged yourself under the covers gladly, positioning your pillows just right. Then shifted to peer over at Cove, who was facing you back, just like the night before. Cove gently spoke, his words like a lullaby. Good night. Good night. Cove's eyes fluttered shut, and he let out a contented sigh. Your eyes fell closed sometime after. You weren't sure exactly when. Only the fact that they were now too heavy to open. It felt a mixture of bitter and sweet emotions. You're happy to be here, but sad it was ending. It was a relief that you would soon be in your own home again, but also wondering if you could return here. There were many more feelings swirling around in your head that hadn't even crystallized into thoughts yet. Paradoxically, you felt nice but also confused. But then also nice from the confusion. In the back of your mind, you realized that you really must be tired. Unsurprisingly, your exhaustion did not give you much time to muse over your emotions. And in what felt like seconds, you were already dreaming. The dreams dancing around your head became fragmented and faded until you couldn't remember a thing about them at all. You're growing more aware of the real world. Cove. You felt Cove's hand on your shoulder shaking it. As you became more aware of his surroundings, you could feel where the bed dipped from his other hand. your shoulder, keep your eyes half open. You lifted your head an inch and turned in the direction of the warmth on your shoulder. Morning. Rubbing the sleepy seas away, you tried to focus on him. Your mouth pulled into a amused smile, and you felt the bed shift when Cove removed his hand, standing back. You sat up fully with a big yawn, stretching your back, then your arms, and lastly your neck before accepting the day. The blanket fell to the side while you swung your legs over the side of the bed. Part of it almost caught your foot, but you kicked it away. Cove put his hand over his mouth, but he still caught the way his shoulders shook. He took a step away, giving you room to get up. It was your last day in Sunset Bird. The only thing you had planned was some family time in the old neighborhood. You figured you'd see where the day took you from there. Yawning again, you glanced over at your clothes. Just one more day to live out of your bag. Chloe started swimming through the pile to put something on. Several minutes passed in comfortable silence while you internally debated between two shirts. Let's get things going, our families are waiting. Nodding, you and Cove swiftly finished getting ready in a small hotel room. As soon as you two had your stuff together and ready to go, you were off. When they arrived, you and Cove decided to visit his dad's house first this time. When you got dropped off, Cove eagerly hopped onto the street with his eyes locked in his father's condo. Your gaze fell on your fiancé. He stood in the middle of the street where you grew up together, while the summer sun made him shine. Though he was the brightest light in your eyes no matter what. A playful grin spread across your face. It was a beautiful day, and a beautiful boy. Cove strode up to his old front door and casually flung it open without bothering to knock once again. You followed at his side as he poked his head in. He closed the door behind both of you. Hello. You heard Cliff and Kyra in the kitchen getting breakfast ready. Kyra was cutting an apple while Cliff was watching the frying pan sizzle. His parents waved from across the room, not straying from their tasks. Good morning, you two. Yeah, morning and hello to you. I hope you slept well.
Thanks.
Just swinging by. Well, welcome to join us for breakfast here. If you haven't eaten, of course. We haven't yet. If we had, there's always room for more. Kyra chuckled. She put down her knife. She put down the knife she had in her hand, so that all her attention could be on her son. You're still my giant growing baby boy. Mom, please. Her didn't pay Cove's whining any mind. Instead, she put a finger to her lips as she thought, her eyes on you, then glimpsing toward the window.
What do you think?
I wonder, do you think your family's eaten yet? Maybe not. My eyes flicked over to the clock on their oven. Given the time, your moms may have eaten, but they could be having a slower morning. It was a coin toss either way. Well, give them a call. They can come over. Cove nodded, a sage expression on his face. Making them breakfast is the least we could do with after how much food I ate in their house growing up.
Right.
True, bud. Very true. Alright. Look at your phone. Even though your moms both had cells over the years, the house number was the one you had memorized as a kid and the first entry in your contact list. As the call connected, you tapped the speaker button. You figured it would be easier if everyone could hear what was going on. You heard a click and a familiar static.
Hello.
Hello, Viola. It's nice to hear from you. Hey, Mom. You nodded at Cove as he listened. You took a second to phrase your request. Have you eaten yet? I'm across the street, and Cove's family wants to invite you to breakfast. Sounds delightful. Pamela and I can do that. Liz and Lee should be able to make it too. Is that fine? Cove took a step forward and spoke loudly so that his voice could be picked up. It definitely would be. The more the merrier. We may have gone together for dinner last night, but there's no law that we can't do it again for breakfast today. Enjoy the company while you can, is what I think. Ma giggled, and you can hear some rustling over the line. Thank you. I'll let them know and we'll be right over. Cliff gave a thumbs up. Cove shook his head with amusement. Dad just gave a thumbs up. I'm telling you since you can't see him over the phone. Power snorted and Ma's laughter rang out, filling the kitchen. Cove switched the thumbs up hand to instead scratch the back of his head.
See you.
Well, it sounds like we'll see you soon. Goodbye for a little while. You could feel her smile from her voice. Bye, Ma. Go into the call with a satisfying tap of the red button. Cliff's eyes wandered around the space. You better get cooking.
Sounds good.
I can help. We nodded from behind Cove, willing to follow directions. No way, you're guests. Kara and I have got this. She grinned. There was something playful in the twist of her lips.
Right.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Cliff. I've been in your spot before, and there's no choice but to accept it. Cove sighed with a sparkle in his eyes, and you can tell that he was entertained. Fine, let's just hang out over here, I guess. Good. Cove walked over to the living room and gestured to the couch. Both took a seat, getting a comfortable spot to wait for the food and family. Cove tilted toward his parents with his chin, then shook his head with a gentle smile, only asking if you could believe this. What you had was a silent shrug. Time passed, filled with light chatting. Cove kept a careful watch on his parents' culinary progress and teasingly kept a running commentary. Ooh, Dad added another pinch of salt. I wonder if that was a good idea. Cliff had to raise his voice and project over to the living room. He sounded very amused. It's funny that you of all people are commenting on my salt usage. We were both born and raised in saltwater. Besides, I'm sure you remember back to when you were about 12 and tried to make... Cove flushed slightly, but his smile remained as bright as ever. Do you really want to start talking about cooking mistakes, Dad? Because I remember a lot of things too. Like how Like, what about that chowder that was supposed to be a pie? What? Cove and his family were quite a show to listen to. He chimed in occasionally, mostly provided the laugh track. Eventually, there was a rhythmic knock at the door. That's them. He said it loudly for his parents' behalf. He nodded and got up to greet your family. He opened the door. Surprisingly, there were no moms. Terry stood in front with Miranda at his side. Derek waved from the back. Hey, buddies. Came to see you two before you left. The plan would have been to go over to Viola's house next if you weren't here. Luckily, you two aren't hard to find. What he said. And hi. Cove burst into happy laughter. His brows were high in surprise, not unlike how he looked after unwrapping a nice present. Wow, thanks for coming. Hello. Kara's voice carried through the house from the kitchen. Cliff likewise projected. Great, the whole gang will be here then. You hear the sound of a cabinet open and shut. Pan clattered and the faucet turned on.
Are we interrupting something?
What he said. No, my family is eating breakfast with us. Should be over here soon. Yep, but my dad always makes a ton of food anyway. There's no problem for you guys to join us. Cove waved off their concerns before pausing with a thoughtful grin. The real problem is there enough places for all these people to sit? He peered back into the house, then started counting the dining room table, chairs, and bar stools. 5, 6. If interrupted when Cove began trying to use his fingers to connect the different chairs to different guests.
No worries.
No worries, some people can switch together on the sofas. It'll be fine. This really is going to be a party. Well, I'd be happy to accept the invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be crazy to skip out on this.
Thanks.
Thanks for making room. We're really glad that you came. Your 3 friends finally piled into the house. Before they had a chance to settle in, the doorbell rang. Only Miranda had sat down.
All right.
Now, that has to be them. People laughed as he walked over to the door and opened it. It was right this time. It was your parents, Liz and Lee, all crowded the front steps. They went into the house and were surprised to see just how many greetings were said. The sheer force of the chorus of hellos was impressive.
What?
How did they beat us here? How early did Viola call you? We're literally across the street. Terry snorted at your sister's confusion. He seemed quite pleased with himself. We were surprised we called ourselves.
Cool.
Very cool. Cliff smirked as he adjusted the settings on the stovetop. It's a little more crowded than expected, but we're making it work. Cove let the final group to complete the picture inside, and they took a chance to greet you along with everyone else. It was when the excited energy buzzing around the table started to calm, you took a second to truly appreciate this view, the most important people in your life all together again. It felt too good to be true to have everyone here. And then you noticed Sakura stood back up. She clapped her hands once and a satisfying smack.
Annie.
I hate to interrupt, but I thought you'd want to know that the food's done cooking. Cliff crossed the floor to place a plate of silverware on the table, and then he dropped stuff on the other surfaces around the rest of the living room. When he was done, he gestured toward the food.
Okay.
Place it in the kitchen, serve yourself, and sit wherever you like. The guests happily formed a line, and the meal was steadily passed around. Before long, each person claimed a seat in the Holden living room area, some at the table, and others the kitchen island, some situated on the couches. Conversations trickled across the various clusters of friends as everyone dug in. Cove finished his plate in record time with a pleased sigh, put his fork down and surveyed the room. This is really cool that we're getting to do this kind of thing. I like this too, Cove. I hope we'll be able to make this happen again. Of course, there will always be more reasons to get the gang back together in the future. Yeah, these two might even dare to celebrate your yearly anniversary. Gasp. Every year. The smirk on Liz's face grew only wider as your parents giggled at her teasing. Ma shook her head, chuckling softer now.
Shush.
Hey, this shush.
True.
Honestly, we just might. You have a good point. It does come around every year. They should. Seriously, they deserve a big celebration for your magical day. The kids are right. You got a lot of people who want to appreciate you. Gotta give them a chance. That's true. I know I have a lot to thank you for. There are more nods were given around the room. Your moms took each other's hands for support. I didn't expect so much encouragement. We'll think about it. She'll think about it, and I'll tell Lonnie to stop thinking so hard she doesn't agree. Hey,
Good.
Good job, Mom. Now that's settled, let's continue to enjoy this perfect gathering. You wanna know who else being here would make this extra perfect? Who? Weird. Playfulness and Kyra stares as she scanned the room. She slowly placed her index finger on her chin. Now I think about it, there's something I haven't done in a while. Eyebrows were raised as Kyra's incomplete thought. She was wordlessly urged to continue. Kyra didn't hesitate. Look at all the photos Cliff has here. Wouldn't that be fun for us all to do? What, Mom? Why would you say that? Particularly all the photos are of me.
Very cute.
And that's why. Embarrassing my baby boy is one of the perks of being a mom. Much to Cove's dismay, his mom was thoroughly entertained at his outburst. She winked in your direction. Meanwhile, Cliff eagerly stood up with a wave of proud affection for his son, completely missed Kyra's teasing intent.
Oh.
I think that's a great idea. Anyone interested in the pictures?
Yeah.
I am. Lee shot her hand up before Cliff could even take a full step. Terry and Miranda snuck each other a glance before nodding with matching grins. Sounds swell.
That's fantastic.
It's a lovely Cliff. Mom tried to hide her amusement behind her hand, but she couldn't stop snickering. Stop the snicker that slipped out. Oh boy. Cove, everyone loves to pick on you. Only out of love. A snort and giggle slipped out of Liz before she could hide her mouth with her hand. She shook her head, feeling embarrassed by Kyra's knowing smile and unwavering gaze. Of course. He buried his head in his hands and sighed slowly. His shoulders deflated in defeat. Fine, we can take a look. Everyone happy with picture time? Yay!
Fun.
Yes. They both excitedly raised a fist of victory. Smaller cheers worked their way around the room. Their friends and family were delighted with this turn of events. Mr. Holden flipped open his faded album of physical photos. He held it up to his face, the corners of his eyes crinkling, as though the book covered much of his face. He was certain he was smiling fondly. He didn't keep it to himself long, laying the family album on the dining table, which the party gathered around to take a peek. Oh, Jesus. The first picture on the first page was baby Cove in a cute little onesie. There were several coos and ahs from the group, and Cliff's eyes were shining with tears as he sniffed. He's grown up so much. I'll enjoy the view. It was even sweeter to observe everyone else's reactions. He continued to praise and tease Cove over his younger years. Reading Cove's stare, his pout deepened, tips of his ears turning pinker the longer you noticed him. He wasn't enjoying this acute attention, and you understood the feeling, but you could also tell that he wasn't as distressed about it as he had been projecting. Cove was, fittingly, acting a bit like a baby. After breakfast in the photo showcase, everyone decided to stick around. Hanging around Mr. Holden's house turned into taking a walk around the neighborhood, and then for lunch you switched over to your mom's condo. It was a good time enjoying each other's company, but eventually the sun began to set, and there was nothing else to delay your friends and family from going home. So at your mom's house, the house you were raised in, the group was taking their time saying their goodbyes. It was tough for you, your family, your friends. You knew what was weighing in the mood. It might be some time before you'd see one another again. It was a pleasure having you all here, and you're welcome to come around again, anytime. Ma wrapped an arm around Mom with a light chuckle. Mom leaned her head gently into her wife, and they both beamed.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know we're all adults and have hectic lives, but we appreciate the time taken to visit. Snorting, Liz crossed her arms. She leaned one hip out to the side while her lips curled teasingly. You make it sound as if this was such a struggle. Some of these people still live here, and it was a vacation for everyone else. Even so, it was very thoughtful. I hope everyone has a safe trip home. Cara clapped a hand on Cliff's shoulder. He was puzzled as she leaned in, though he could hear her. That means you too. It's dangerous crossing the street. Remember to look both ways. Hey now. Yeah. Good luck with all the important grown-up things I'm sure you'll have to do when you're all out of here. Definitely. I'll give updates next time something exciting happens, or something lame, so I can vent about it. Oh, nice. I'm glad Lee won't be forgetting the little people. Never ever. I'll keep in touch too.
Very nice.
You better. Welp, me and Randy aren't going far, so we can keep an eye on the town for the rest of you. Nothing gets past me. Right. We'll make sure everything is okay. No need to worry at all.
Thanks.
That's kind of you. Miranda and Terry gave each other pleased smiles, already committing to their self-appointed task. Derek scratched the back of his head, wearing a pensive look. It's always sad when I have to leave this town. It happens too often. But at least there will be people looking for Sunset Bird. Makes me feel better about it. After a pause, Mr. Holden gave the younger folks a thumbs up.
Great.
I like his voice actor. Great. That's all great. You've got a lot to be proud of, and a lot to be looking forward to. Well said, Cliff. I'm thankful that I've been privileged to witness the growth you've undergone these years. You've each matured beautifully. Cove was touched by his parents' words and struggled to keep up with something to follow. Oh yeah, it's been good seeing everyone. No one had taken a step yet, and you couldn't put this off any longer. It was time to say goodbye. I'll miss you.
Oh,
Thanks. I'll miss you too, kiddo. Very much. Mom wrapped you into a big hug, and you felt the weight of another person in her arms. You realized Liz got pulled into it too. We'll be back soon enough that you'll be kicking us back out. I don't think that would happen. I'd like to see you try to push it though. Be funny. She held you tighter for another moment before letting go. Afterwards, there was more sniffling and hugs. Lots of hugs. Everyone started trailing out into the street, seeing others off. Friends and family got into their own cars and left the neighborhood. By the time things were fully settled, you realized the sun had set. Earlier, you and Cove decided on having a car pick you both up. Neither of you wanted to bother your parents after such a long day. It would be a little while longer before it would be there, though. It was the right choice, as both sets of parents shot you weary looks. The four seemed ready to call it a night. It didn't take either you or Cove very long to assure them that it was okay to head home and go to bed. With one more round of good night and goodbyes, your families returned to their condos. And the only people left on the street were you and Cove. He closed his eyes, humming happily. He waited for it to pass. He stared up at the sky. Cove's hands were in his pockets and his shoulders were relaxed when he caught your attention and with a tilt of his head. Want to guess what I'm thinking? Well, at the moment you were in the neighborhood you grew up in together, with time to spare, your mouth curved to a soft smile, and you can see the happy glow in Cove's demeanor. You had a feeling there was an easy answer. You think about the fireflies. Right, you want to go to the poppy hill before we leave? Always. There was an eager bounce in your step as you and Cove crossed over toward the hill behind your parents' house. Side by side, you stared out in the view in awe. As you imagined, the hill was dotted with glowing firefly light. It perfectly reflected the memories of your childhood held closely in your mind. Cove sighed contently, seeing them across the hill, moving in and out of the blades of grass and the stars above. Eventually, Cove moved his attention back to you again. There was a dazzling brightness there in his expression that quickly morphed into something more mischievous. Want to catch one? He asked, raising a curious eyebrow. But then he didn't wait for you to respond. Cove bolted off after the first firefly that happened to dart past his nose. It is so on. Kicking up a bit of dirt and leaves, you bolted in the opposite direction after a few fireflies captured your attention. The first one that flitted into your range, you dove for it. Did you get one? It escaped between your fingers. But that didn't dim a second of your fun. You shook your head, trying to find your next target. Next one, I can feel it. Unless you're feeling my future victory. With the corner of your eye, you watch Cove get spun neatly around, following one that stayed just out of reach. Traveling, you crouched down low, searching the air. The pursuit for fireflies continued until a handful had been caught. Cove crossed over to you with a bright grin at the rivalry. He could rival every twinkling bug and star around you. Between both his hands, Cove carefully held the firefly. The corner of his mouth twisted before a few giggles escaped him. And you knew that feeling well. When the firefly buzzed around, tickling all your hands. Cove's eyelids fluttered open, meeting yours. He watched you with a complicated mix of emotions. Heavy with the weight of 15 years of history of memories. It's really a relief that I got to see the fireflies. Ship wouldn't have felt complete without it. You hummed happily in response before getting caught up in watching the fireflies again. I couldn't believe you hadn't planned on doing this all along. It was so right to end your trip. Taking a deep breath, Cove held your eye. Ew. He appeared to be conflicted about what he wanted to say next, and you waited for him to make up his choice. So strange to not live here anymore. Most of my life, neither of us were really away from Sons of Bird. Well, unless one of us went on a trip or something. But when both families took trips together, remember that? He chuckled, losing himself in fond reminiscing. You couldn't help but match his grin. I like the road trip one a lot. Though I don't think we need to switch into an RV again. We're way too big. Laughing, Cove shook his head. His brow creasing the longer he sat and thoughts spinning around in his brain. I'll make sure I do this. Those visits back then with my mom. I remember what a big deal they felt like back then. Be away from here without anyone else coming. For a whole few weeks. Oh, how little I knew. about grades, making curfew. What would Mr. Holden spring on Cove next? Those were huge deals when you were kids. Looking back, it was easy to see how everything was going to work out. Finally, Cove parted his hands and released the firefly back into the hill. It flew around his face before darting away in the sky, but your gaze was fixated on him. There was a touch of wistfulness in his features as he watched the bug disappear into the night. It was until Cove turned his attention back to you that his demeanor warmed. And I think I'm going to end the episode here. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you later.